Sunday doubleheader on ESPN Radio. First in Minnesota, the Vikings face the Rams. Touchdown! Then Andrew Luck and the Colts face the undefeated Broncos. Coverage begins at noon Eastern Sunday on ESPN Radio.
The topics are hot. The discussion is heated. And we're on fire. The First Take Podcast starts now.
Here's what's coming up on the First Take Podcast. Some Eagles call the Cowboys crybabies. How will Dallas respond? Plus, what did we learn about Johnny Manziel in a loss to the Bengals? And is Derrick Rose giving Chicago hope? Let's get started. Hey, good morning. Happy Friday. Welcome into First Take. They are both here alongside Skip Bayless and Stephen A. Smith.
What's up? How y'all doing?
It is great to see you.
You look nice today. What's up, big boy?
Welcome back.
I'm back in the house. I told you I'd be back.
Now, wait a second. I heard that tonight, once again, you are hosting, is that right? Hosting the 6 o'clock Sports Center?
I'm doing it by myself.
By yourself at 6 o'clock tonight.
I'm very nervous.
E1,
I'm very
Sports
nervous.
Center.
I anticipate that it will be much harder to do that than beating up on you in the morning.
Oh, but now you have disqualified the reason you're actually with me on Friday because you came for 6 o'clock Sports Center.
No.
You didn't come for me. You came for it.
He came for me.
Here's the deal, Skip Bayless.
Yeah, I got you.
Don't force me to admit on national television how much I love you.
Oh.
There have been plenty of times I have come here just for you.
That is true.
Yes.
Next question.
You're going to be fantastic tonight.
I hope so.
Please.
I don't know about that.
Oh, Skip, whatever.
Let's see if
either of you are going to be fantastic
That's
in
the
this show.
hilarious part. One of the things I've been thinking about is the fact that I know he's going to be watching.
Well, I'm going to be watching too. Got to
He's
see
not
the
gonna
yard.
miss it.
I'm excited.
I might
It's
be
going to be great.
live. I might be live tweeting.
Yes, he might. Don't put it
Can't
past
wait.
Molly. Don't put it past him. I'm
Someone's
trying
going
to tell
be trolling you.
Don't put it past
It's going to be great. You're going to get us set for all those great NBA games we have tonight. But today, we are previewing all the major NFL matchups, and we'll also talk about D. Rose looking like his old MVP self last night. How about that? To kick things off, we just heard the Eagles' Benny Logan on 94 WIP calling the Cowboys crybabies. This ahead, of course, of the Eagles-Cowboys matchup in Dallas. Potential playoff implications on the line. Stephen A., do you agree with that description, crybabies?
Crybaby. I can't wait for this.
Here's my thing.
They're fans.
I'm not sure I could classify the Dallas Cowboys as crybabies. They're fans?
Yes.
An entirely different matter altogether.
Wait, you're clapping for that?
I mean, there's nobody worse than Cowboy Nation. There's nobody worse than Cowboys Nation. Cowboy Nation is the worst. You whine about everything. You don't live in reality. Listen. It is relevant. It is relevant. No. When you look, I will say this, Skip. I will say this. You think about Dallas, they really shouldn't be complaining about anything because they've dug their own proverbial grave, as far as I'm concerned. When you think about the fact that they let go of DeMarco Murray, when you heard Jerry Jones whine about how if it were not for the salary cap, we would have kept him here, but then you found a way to get
whining, that's just telling the truth.
Well, you could say that, but Greg Hardy's on that squad. You found some money to give him.
You have a cap. You got to squeeze people under.
You found some money to make sure you give him because you got to remember. Well, you got to remember, really?
Yes.
You think Greg Hardy's more valuable than DeMarco Murray? Let me tell you something right now. If DeMarco Murray was in a Cowboys uniform, running for this team behind that offensive line with that system that they had tailored towards him last year, you would not have felt the effect of Tony Romo's absence to the significance that you did. Matt Castle would have looked better. Brandon Whedon would have looked better. Okay, you might not have you might not have needed to rush Dez Bryant back prematurely and endanger his health while you're saving Tony Romo. You wouldn't have been able to do any of that. But because you lost, because you could have come up with the extra 12 to 14 million for DeMarco Murray, okay, this is the situation that you find yourself in. You're relying on a Rolando McClain who's back after he sat up there and violated this substance abuse policy. You got Greg Hardy. Don't get me started with his history. You got Randy Gregory who had issues with the weed, even though that's not a monetary thing because you just drafted him and now he's doing some things for you. You lost Callahan, who was coaching your offensive line. You lost a lot of things. So I'm looking at it from the perspective, Skip Bayless, that I wouldn't call them crybabies per se, as in a literal sense.
Yep.
But I would acknowledge that they certainly foster the mentality of the legit crybabies existing within Cowboy Nation. They sit up there and use their fan base like Skip Bayless to sit there and bloviate on their behalf. And you know what they engage? Because you know me, I love to watch my politics. You know what the Dallas Cowboys engage in, Skip Bayless? It's called plausible deniability. They sit up there and leave it to guys like yourself so they can turn around and say, "Oh, us? No, we're not complaining about anything. That's him." When in fact, it's them.
Them?
So good to have you back, Stephen
you
A.
are calling the Dallas Cowboys crybaby.
I'm calling Cowboy Nation crybaby.
Oh, I think you.
Yeah.
Cowboy Nation crybaby, and I think the Cowboys themselves. Are they whining a little bit? Yeah, they probably whining a little bit because, they're feeling the injury bug and they've been victimized.
It's been
and all
a long
that stuff.
time.
Woe is me. I do sense that, Skip Bayless. I must admit, I do sense that.
I'm happy that you have a bodyguard on this topic today.
I might just move over there.
You need
Yeah.
it. This is 2-on-1. It's back to the good old days of the show, and I love it because I love this topic. I especially love this part of this topic. Your uninformed, dare I say, idiotic opinion about DeMarco Murray, but my tongue is tied on this one because somebody is remembering we are going to do a full-blown topic on that later in this show.
Good,
so I'm not going to waste our time on that topic, how much they miss DeMarco Murray, because they don't miss him at all.
Really?
Trust me.
Really?
Trust me.
Really?
Yeah, we will do that later in this show.
Now that's idiotic.
No, it's
that
not.
they don't
Here we
miss
go.
him.
Back to my friend Benny Logan of the Philadelphia Eagles and your friend. Now, I cannot express to you how much better, even better, I feel about my Cowboys' chances this Sunday at home against those arch-rival Eagles because of the idiocy of one Benny Logan. I appreciate you, Benny. Thank you very much for filling up our bulletin board with motivation. So let me get this straight. On a football level, this is as disrespectful a shot as you can take because you are questioning the manhood, Benny Logan, of the best offensive line in all of pro football. That's what you're doing because I'm going to read that quote again. I'm going to hit you hard every snap, says Benny Logan. So just shut up and get hit and take it like a man, questioning the manhood of my offensive line. And I'm going to point this out again as I did yesterday. Pro Football Focus did an extremely great job of grading out all the blockers in the National Football League, and the whole left side of my offensive line graded 1, 2, and 1 at their positions. The best left tackle in Ty Smith, the best left guard in Lyle Collins, and the best center in Travis Frederick. That's how great the left side of that line.
Absolutely.
They've all graded out number 1 at their position. And this guy is questioning their manhood. Thank you. I love it. And thank you to Derrick Rose, a rookie, no less, who chimed in off Benny Logan and took a shot at the great Jason Witten, calling him a crybaby. We are talking about Jason Witten, the toughest, clutchest tight end in the NFL right now. Right now, just on toughness and clutchness, I'll take Jason Witten as a long-time proven tight end. I'll take him over Rob Gronkowski to make the catch at the moment. Again, Rob's coming along. He'll be better than Jason Witten. But Jason Witten's going to be in the Hall of Fame. And you're calling, as a rookie, you're calling him a crybaby? That he's looking for flags on everybody? Are you kidding me? Thank you. Whatever your name is, Derrick Rose. Really? Thank you.
Wait, that's glass.
I realize that.
Yeah.
I've broken it before, and I might break it before this topic's over because I am loving
Be
this.
careful,
Okay.
Financial.
So
you could afford to cover it.
I want to remind you that as Des Bryant will remind his team, the Eagles over-celebrated last Thanksgiving when they kicked our tails. They had us for turkey dinner. Remember that game? And you were bloviating the next day on First Take about how it's over for my Dallas Cowboys. And then what happened? They went to Philly and kicked your tails. A couple of weeks later, thanks to Des Bryant on the field pointing at every Eagle saying, we're going to get you back. Well, they're going to get you back this weekend at home, where I'm going to remind my Cowboys, they've lost 4 of the last 5 to Philadelphia at Jerry World. 4 of the last 5. Remember that. Put that on the bulletin board. Remind yourself
Go ahead.
of that.
Feel the need to motivate.
And also,
I know.
I want to remind everyone, especially Eagles Nation, that as subpar as Matt Castle has been so far, that Sam Bradford is dead last in QBR in the National Football League. He is dead last in QBR. And I also want to remind everybody, especially Eagles Nation, that the Eagles are dead last in time of possession. You know why? The fast break offense goes 3 and out, 3 and out. And all of a sudden, the other team's got the ball, and it's got the ball again, and it's got the ball again. My team can run the football behind the best offensive line.
Totally agree.
So here comes Darren McFadden. Here comes time of possession. Here comes ball control. Here comes keeping the score close. I'll give you the Eagles are a little better overall team right now, but my team will keep it close. And you know what? It is time for me to get one break. I just need one. One bounce, one friendly bounce. I've got none for 5 games. This time, I get one big friendly bounce on one key play. And my guy, Matt Castle, makes one more play than Sam Badford. And the season starts now, because the NFC East hasn't really started yet, but it's going to start now for my Dallas Cowboys. They will win at home. I appreciate the motivation from Benny Logan and young Derrick Rose. And I'm going to go Cowboys somehow, some way. I'm going to go 24-23. Thank you.
Skip Bayless, you make a compelling argument. I can't deny that, because when you consider the fact that novices, rookies, would open their mouth and allow bulletin board material to be provided to arguably undisputably the strongest element of the Dallas Cowboys, which is their offensive line, is just flat out idiotic. You're right about that. I totally give that to you. I would remind you, however, the Eagles played one less game because they had a bye week, and they lead the league in turnovers, with takeaways with 19.
They do.
With 19.
Yeah.
And the Dallas Cowboys obviously don't mind giving the ball away from time to time.
Yep.
So the combination of those things work against the Dallas Cowboys.
Yep.
However, if they're running the football and not really throwing it, that's where the Eagles could be in some trouble, and I'm concerned about that because their offensive line is no joke. Obviously, Dunbar is injured. Joseph Randle has been released, so now all you've got is Darren McFadden. You know, I continuously question his durability more so than anything else. He's had a couple of games, but I wonder in a smash-mouth football game, which I think this could potentially end up being. I don't know how reliable McFadden is. Now, granted, he's running behind that offensive line. So if there's ever a shield of protection to be provided to a running back, they've got it in Dallas, no question, particularly with the left side, just like you highlighted. You know, but in the end, I think the takeaways, I think the combination of the takeaways along with the Eagles defense and the way they can play some football, the way they've been playing football over the last several weeks, the fact that Tony Romo is still not the quarterback, that it's going to be Matt Castle, and if something happens to him, it's going to be Brandon Whedon. In the end, I believe wholeheartedly that the Eagles should be able to win this game. I think Dallas will be able to run the football effectively, but they've been running the football effectively. They're averaging about 127 yards a game, but it doesn't stop them. It hasn't stopped them from losing 5 straight. So in the end, my point is you could still end up running the football effectively and wind up losing anyway, which I think will happen to the Dallas Cowboys
hope so.
in this particular situation. I'm going to pick the Eagles to win this game 30-22.
30-22.
That's right.
30 against my Greg Hardy-led defense.
Yes.
That's a lot of points for Sam Badford.
Yeah, but you know what? Sam Badford might get hurt, and Mark Sanchez comes in there. And if Mark Sanchez comes in there, he's still better than Brandon Whedon or Matt Castle. And I expect the defense for the Philadelphia Eagles to score at least 7 points. So I'm looking at the offense to basically score anywhere from 22 to 23 points. I think the Eagles defense will score a touchdown in this game.
Okay, and Molly wholeheartedly agrees.
I'll be looking for that. No, I'm going to be looking for that friendly bounce. I can't wait. Hey, Betty. Thanks for that. All right, moving on. Benny Logan.
Oh, Benny.
Yeah, Benny.
I thought you said Betty, not Benny.
Oh, no. You know.
Who's Betty?
My boy, Benny Logan. The Bengals stay perfect with a 21-point win over the Browns. Andy Dalton connecting with his tight end Tyler Eifert for 3 scores. For Johnny Manziel, really a tale of 2 halves. In the first, Manziel led the Browns in their longest TD drive since 2013, but couldn't lead to any points in the second half.
Looking back, there were a couple times I could have, got it down to a tight end or got it down to a back, and really, even sitting there with 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter, just to get something established. I think it took a little too many shots right there. The back shoulder to Debo, ball over the middle to Barnage. I just gotta get some completions to get into a rhythm, and that really didn't happen for us in the second half.
Stephen A., what did you think of Johnny's performance last night?
Depends on which Johnny you're talking about. If you're talking about the Johnny Manziel who led them to that scoring drive at the end of the first half, who completed about 11 of his 18 passes in the first half for 100-plus yards, I think that there's no question that Johnny Manziel has shown that he's improving. He's shown that he's putting in some work and that he's getting better. The flip side to it is that in the second half, because he's 11 for 18 for 128 yards in the first half. In the second half, what are we talking about here? 4 or 15 for what is 40? It, 40 yards?
Yep.
No. I mean, Cincinnati did a great job of keeping him in the pocket, neutralizing him, making sure he couldn't get out and scramble and find other receivers to throw it to. And I think that it was exactly what we talked about yesterday. Skip, he threw a couple of passes to Bo and obviously had the TD pass to Johnson Jr. and all of this other stuff. But in the end, what it comes down to is as we watch this team, we know that they were inhibited to some degree because they're an inferior team to the Cincinnati Bengals. They're not nearly as complete. And then when you look at their running game, once again, Isaiah Crowell only had 38 yards rushing. Thank you. Only 38 yards rushing. I mean, their running game is virtually absent. Mm-hmm. So all those things taken into consideration, Johnny didn't have much to work with. He showed flashes of improvement, obviously. I was impressed with what I saw from him in the first half. But once Cincinnati amped it up and really kept him contained and made him into nothing more than a pocket passer, combined with their receivers' inability to get open, he was completely neutralized and nullified and negated in every way. It was over. They were no match for a superior Cincinnati team. So overall, I can't give him more than a C because they got beat up in the second half. But I saw enough in the first half for me to say I'd like to see how he would be if he had some weapons, meaning some, the Josh Gordons of the world in the lineup, along with an offensive line that could do a better, or even a better running game to some degree. I saw enough to give him a C, but I can't give him more than that after that second half performance.
This topic wears me out.
Yeah.
It makes me sad in the end.
Yeah.
It's difficult to talk about. I'm with you, but I'm not even as positive as you are about his performance last night. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if we rank it versus the 30-0 debacle at home against Cincinnati that he started and finished last year, it was improvement.
Okay.
His body language was better, confidence a little better. He seemed like a little more in control of the offense and what he was doing. Mm-hmm. Didn't look as lost. Okay. Give you all that. But I didn't love the way he played overall. I just didn't love it. Mm-hmm. But I'm with you. It's hard for me to react at all to this because I'm going to say it again. He is playing with the NFL's worst group of running backs and receivers. Nobody has a worse group of skill, quote-unquote, talent than Johnny Manziel is stuck playing with at this point.
Right.
I'm going to say this again. He is playing for a coach and a GM who did not want him. They did not want to take him with the 22nd overall pick. That came from the owner, Haslam, on draft night in the war room. So he has been, to me, doomed from the start in Cleveland. And he's obviously playing for an organization that seems doomed just as an organization. It's just so dysfunctional. It's such a mess. Yeah. And after the game, I thought it was fitting that Peyton went Jay Gruden on RG3 last year. Remember when Jay Gruden used to rip RG3 or just be so condescending and dismissive of him? And so last night, Peyton dismissed Johnny as inconsistent. Okay, I'll give you that. He said he's got to do a better job of throwing from the pocket. Okay, I'll give you that. But then when asked, will Johnny start when they play again in what's 10 days away from now, Peyton said, we will assess what pool of players are available. What pool of players? So we're talking about a former first-round draft pick here, and he is relegated to a pool of players. Maybe somebody on the practice squad. Maybe one of our second, third, fourth stringers will be ready. Maybe Josh McCown. We'll see what our pool is before we decide whether Johnny's going to get another start. That's as dismissive as you can get from a head coach. So my bottom line again is I don't think Mike Peyton will be there next year. I could be wrong about that, but it seems like he's got one foot out the door because that team is so bad. And I'm hoping Johnny won't be there next year.
Well, both of us are hoping Johnny won't be there. That's number one. Number two, to get back to him, improvisational skills were there. In the pocket, he didn't seem as impressive. The offense clearly looks like it's run with a bit more efficiency with Josh McCown up in there as opposed to Johnny Manziel. But I think that, Skip, I would say this. We spend so much time feeling sorry for Johnny Manziel. Is it time that we should all feel sorry for Mike Peyton? And the reason I bring that up is because Like you said, he didn't want Johnny Manziel. All right? It was forced on him. This man, and then Josh Gordon, with his obviously substance abuse issues. So that had something to do with it. When you look at it from that perspective, and you've got two primary weapons alone, and then obviously, you've got some issues with injuries in your secondary on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, to me, Mike Pettin, and then you got the whole Farmer issue with, getting in trouble with the league and all of this stuff. Everywhere you turn, Mike Pettin has had to work around all of this, along with an owner who won't just cut the check and stay out the way. He actually interferes because he thinks he knows a thing or two about football and what football decisions should be made.
Maybe.
A legitimate argument could be made that Mike Pettin has been undermined to some degree. Not intentionally or anything like that, but the environment is so dysfunctional. Let us remind our audience that Kyle Shanahan was the offensive coordinator on this team. Got let out of his contract. That does not happen with offensive coordinators. He wanted out, got let out, and immediately landed the job in Atlanta. So when you look at it from that perspective, everybody wants to jump ship. And this is what Mike Pettin has to deal with, because by and large, it ain't because of him. It's because of what goes on above him and how it interferes, how it interferes with what folks are doing below.
All right, those are fair points, but I don't have a lot of respect for Mike Pettin as a head coach. I think he was a pretty good defensive coordinator who's in a little over his head as a head coach.
And I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying I don't know that because I don't know how much of a chance he's had to be a head coach.
All right.
That's my issue with Mike.
Okay. The bottom line of sadness that I felt for Johnny last night was, do you remember, if we could see this after his touchdown pass, he went over by himself on the sideline and did like an air chest bump to nobody. To nobody.
Oh, I thought he did that. I thought he did that on purpose.
Well, he's just doing it. He's celebrating by himself.
That's right.
Okay. Okay, that's a guy.
But there was a couple of guys that greeted him once he came down.
No, I don't think so.
They were right there.
They were right there. He did it by himself.
But I'm saying that I thought he was
funny.
No, but it's just you're saying he's
I think you're reaching there.
Okay, look, he's doing it by himself because
he realize that when I
feels like he's an outsider, playing for a team that didn't really want him. That's Johnny, and plus he's gotten so much grief for all of his money signs, so he's saying, I'm going to go celebrate by myself over here, hopefully out of view of cameras. Obviously, there was a camera on him all the way up the sideline. I thought that was telling, because that's Johnny's mentality right now. It's me against the world in Cleveland. I got nobody backing me. Nobody's behind me. Nobody's on my side in Cleveland.
Coach certainly
I'm alone.
Well, I know for a fact he'd like to be gone.
Well, for sure.
He'd like to be gone, like to be in a better situation. There's no question, and I don't blame him one bit. I'd actually like to see him in Houston.
I would too. And the last thing, the one great thing we saw from him, to your point, and I want to push this. This kid has rare quickness and elusivity, because I'm sure the Bengals' whole plan was you cannot ever let him out, and he was getting out at will. Sometimes he got out in the second half. He didn't make a play.
I couldn't tell. I really, really couldn't tell. What they had in the second half, one first down maybe?
Yep.
I mean, it was bad.
He missed some throws. But the point is, I still think he can play somewhere else. He needs a fresh start.
I'd love to see him get a shot down the stretch with the Browns. I know it's not the greatest team, just to continue starting, but I don't think that's going to happen as soon as McCown's back.
I personally prefer to see Johnny Manziel on the bench because he has nothing to work with. I don't care how great you are as a quarterback. Even if you're great, if you don't have anybody to throw the ball to because they ain't open, it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, fair enough. There were a couple that the receivers should have gotten. About last night, the Bulls beat the Thunder in the United Center thanks to a dominant fourth-quarter performance by Derrick Rose, who had 12 of his 29 points in the fourth. Stephen A., has your faith been restored in Rose?
Well, listen, let's be clear about something here. Any faith that I lost in Derrick Rose has very, very little to do with his game. It has to do with his desire to actually play the game of basketball. That's what I've questioned in terms of his quotes. As Joakim Noah would say, says crazy stuff sometimes gets him in trouble. That's what I've been concerned about with Derrick Rose. Certainly the injuries have you concerned, because when you go through the myriad of injuries, and TNT did an exceptional job last night of just doing, giving us an image of all the injuries he has suffered from. It's like, good Lord have mercy. He's got to wake up with pain in some area every single day. It's a miracle that he's still out there playing. But then he still goes out there. Russell Westbrook, his summer partner, he works out with him in the summer. He blew by him on a couple of occasions, took advantages of mismatches when Enes Kanter found himself, switched over on Derrick Rose, along with other people. Still 0 for 9 from three-point range on the season, but found his mid-range game. I was impressed by his quickness, his first step, his explosiveness to the basket, his mid-range jumper. I liked all of those things. With Derrick Rose, there's always a question as to how long it can continue because of the injury issue. And it doesn't even have to be a severe one. Because of the multitude of injuries he suffered from, you never know how much the wear and tear of an 82-game schedule could wear on his body. And some days he doesn't seem to have the lift. He doesn't seem to have the speed. But when you see what you saw last night, it reminds you of how great this kid can be when he's got his game going. There's no question in my mind about that. So, one of the things that I said is that if you're Chicago, paying him $20 million this year, paying him $21 million next season, when you think about the possibility of him moving on, I said yesterday specifically on my radio show, I'm like, don't move him now, because he came into last night's game having scored 8 points, Skip, in each of the last 3 games. Well, you don't want to do anything with him when his market is low. What you want him to do is to go out there and play lights out. And then you entertain making a move or making a decision as to whether or not you're going to make the move. Right now, I was impressed with what I saw from him last night. There's no question. But I left feeling there were more questions about Oklahoma City than answers about Derrick Rose. But I was pleased with what I saw from him. And it's impossible, if you know the kid, to actually root against him. He's an incredibly nice kid, and we know that he can play when healthy. It's not like he's some scrub. He's just been suffering from the injury bug. But I saw what I saw last night, and if he can hit his mid-range game and display that kind of speed, he's going to do damage against an awful lot of guys in the NBA, and I think that it's going to bode well for the Chicago Bulls, because we've been looking at Cleveland, Miami, Washington, and Milwaukee, and we sort of forgot about Chicago because Tom Thibodeau had departed. Well, maybe if Derrick Rose keeps this up, we'll we'll revisit the conversation, and it will include Chicago.
Gut feeling, will he keep this up to this level?
Skip, I think as long as he's healthy enough to play, I don't want to say this level, but it's not going to be as bad as the single digits. I would say to you, do I think that Derrick Rose can average 18 to 20 a night? Yes. Not 29.
I know we're way early in this season, but what struck me after that game was over last night is that game was something of an indictment of Derrick Rose in his passion or desire or urgency with which he attacks the game of basketball.
Right.
And by the way, I got the last 3 games at 8, 6, and 4. He did have an 8, but the 8 was in a loss at Detroit, and then he only scored 4 in a blowout loss at Charlotte.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
All right, so not to, no big deal. But okay, so he goes 8, 6, 4. Then he scores 10 in the last 3.5 minutes against the Oklahoma City Thunder of Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant.
Yep.
Well, that's pretty special stuff. That's all-star stuff. That's former MVP style stuff, right?
Yes.
And I'm thinking, where was that? I'm sure a lot of Bulls fans thinking, where did that come from, and why don't we see more of that on a nightly basis? I don't know. He is a good kid. He's also a little strange sometimes, a little hard to read, a little, what are you thinking? He's gotten a bunch of bad breaks with his injuries, obviously. Has he come back as quickly as he could? I don't know, but a lot of Bulls fans obviously think he hasn't worked hard enough. Not that he hasn't worked hard enough, he hasn't pushed himself hard enough to take the risk to come back maybe on time. He's taken more time than he probably needed to get completely healthy. So my point is, when we see that kind of explosion, now he set the bar back up. And I'm wondering, was it prompted? I'm just going to throw this out. Our man Brian Windhorst was on ESPN Radio yesterday and made a strong, bold statement. I think it was yesterday. It might have been the day before. But he said, I think it was the day before. He said that the breakup has begun between Derrick Rose and the Bulls. Like we're seeing the first signs of it. They're starting to split apart and maybe part ways at some point in the near future. Okay? Do you think that got back to Derrick and it hit him? He said, I'm going to watch this.
I'm going to give Derrick Rose the benefit of the doubt. That eye injury was legit.
Yeah.
Look at him, and you can tell how legit
I
it
agree.
was.
Yeah.
When he sits there and says, I'm still seeing double, and you look at his eye, one socket higher than the other, I mean, it's believable, okay? So you take that into account, and you talk about how you just had to sit on the couch for a couple of weeks. You weren't allowed to do anything, and just finding your rhythm,
That's
and
fair.
raising your blood pressure up. All of those things are fair, and they're legitimate on his part. So because of that, I can't sit up there and just say, well, he just seemed to work harder in this game than he did in others. He may have been going through things in others that he didn't go through last night. But in the end, Brian Windhorst is absolutely correct. And logic says so. Because if you're the Chicago Bulls moving forward, how can you plan a future with Derrick Rose, considering not only the plethora of injuries he has suffered from and how much he's been debilitated despite his youth, but on top of it all, how so concerned he appears to be about it that he speaks about life beyond basketball seemingly at every turn. If you're the Chicago Bulls, that's not somebody that you can enjoy paying $20+ million to per year. So I think that everybody knows what Brian Windhorst was saying, and I think Brian Windhorst was absolutely right to say so.
And by the way, just a quick thought on your man Westbrook. I know they were back-to-back, the Thunder, but he's now 1 for 12 in his last 2 fourth quarters. Just for the record, he only took 4 shots last night and missed all of them, but he made sure his man Kevin Durant took 8 shots and made 4 of them. They were in position at 94 all until Derrick Rose turned back into Derrick Rose, right?
Well, they got to figure, in Oklahoma City, they got to figure out some things. But, I mean, the bottom line is Russell Westbrook didn't have the greatest night, and he still finished with 20, 10, and 8. So, I mean, we all know what he could do. And Kevin Durant, we know that he doesn't usually shoot 13 for 29. It's usually it's usually less shots and more made shots than that. So, you know, that's not going to last. But somehow, some way, the Ibakas, the Cantors, the Waiters, you've got to find a way to fit these guys in to a relatively new system that Billy Donovan has employed. So you're going to have to figure that out.
3 games
Takes time.
Lost late. And the one at Orlando, which I watched, they should have lost it late. And I told you Russell banked in like a 40-foot three-pointer straight on at the buzzer to send it into overtime.
Takes time. Takes time.
Hey there, everybody. We're Mike and Mike.
It's that time of year again, Greeny.
You're absolutely right, Golick. The college football playoff is here.
And we're giving you the chance to be in with us at the national championship game.
Here's what you do. Listen live every weekday for your chance to win the Mike and Mike at the college football playoff sweepstakes presented by AutoZone.
Listen live for that winning word, then just enter for your chance to win.
We're picking a winner every week. Who's in?
Visit ESPNradio.com/MikeCFP for complete contest rules.
This season has been a struggle for Andrew Luck. He's 1-5 as a starter, and despite missing 2 games, he leads the league with 13 turnovers. Since the start of last season, Luck has committed 6 more turnovers than any other quarterback. On Sunday, he takes on Peyton Manning, who has led his team to a 7-0 start for an NFL record 5th season. In 2 of his last 3 7-0 starts, Manning led the Colts to a Super Bowl appearance. Skip, did Indianapolis make the right decision in letting Peyton go in drafting Luck?
No, they did not. Stephen A., if you recall, the day after Jim Irsay tearfully eased Peyton Manning out the back door in Indianapolis, I said big mistake. And I feel even more strongly it was a big mistake now that I look at what's happening this year. I don't want to unfairly pile on to Andrew Luck, but I'm going to make a big picture point, and I'm going to stand by it. Let's look at Peyton Manning. I said that Peyton, over the next 3 years after he left Indy, would give the Colts a better chance of winning a Super Bowl than Andrew Luck would. This is a win-now league, as I keep telling you, and so I don't want to look at 8, 9, 10 years down the road. I want to know what can happen in the next 3, and now I can make it 4 years that Peyton Manning would have given Indy a better shot at winning it all than Andrew Luck can give him, even at this stage in his 4th year of development. Let's look at these 4 years in the NFL for Peyton Manning. His QBR, scale of 0 to 100, is 77, a combined 77 over 4 years. That's number 1 in the National Football League, ahead of your bad man Aaron Rodgers, and even ahead of Tom Brady, who's 3rd over a 4-year span. Over that span, Andrew Luck has had a 61 QBR. Not bad, but not great. Kind of middle of the pack. But his QBR, as we talk about, it's fallen. He's gone 67, 64, 62, and now all the way down to 38, which ranks 25th in the National. I'm sorry, 30th in the National Football League.
Only Ryan Tannehill was it?
There
Ryan
you go.
Tannehill and Sam Bradford.
Sam Bradford, that's right.
Good Lord. Got me saying Sam Bradford.
Yeah, you got it. Over the 4 years, Peyton Manning has thrown 39 more touchdown passes than Andrew Luck.
Yep.
He's thrown 8 fewer interceptions. He has 12 fewer total turnovers. And I have to point out that as successful as Andrew Luck's team has been, because it has been a playoff team, and you make the case, they go one step and then another step and another step in the playoffs.
Right.
How much have they benefited from, we could argue, but I think it's the worst division over the last 4 years in pro football in the AFC South. They are now, the Colts, 19-2 over Andrew Luck's 4 years in the South. 19-2. So it's a gimme division where you're going to win the division and get a home playoff game. Okay, now let's look at what's happened in the postseason. Peyton Manning, he's only 2-3, and he did lose at home to Luck last year, so I'm going to give Luck that one.
Right.
But Peyton Manning has 9 touchdowns to 5 interceptions in the postseason, and Andrew Luck in his 6 postseason games has 9 touchdowns to 12 interceptions. So even in the postseason, he has 7 more interceptions than Peyton Manning, because we know Andrew Luck has been a turnover machine. So I'm looking at the totality of this, and on aura, on mystique, on lovability in the city of Indianapolis, horseshoe on the helmet. Peyton was the Colts. It was the house that Peyton built, Lucas Oil Stadium. If you keep him and he's playing at this high of a level, and you could argue, well, maybe they don't surround him with enough help and he doesn't have a great enough supporting cast. I don't know. I'm taking Peyton over Luck. And again, I'm not saying Luck's a bust. I'm not saying I despise him. I don't. I'm just saying this is the great Peyton Manning who had 3 straight years at MVP kind of level. Certainly last year for about half a year he was at MVP level.
Right.
And a lot of people, including I think Jim Irsay and the Colts doctors, thought he was pretty much shot after all those neck procedures. What, did he have 3 neck procedures or whatever it was? So again, I didn't think it was that he was shot. I thought Denver made a great choice to go with him over Tim Tebow, obviously, as much as I love Tebow. This is the great Peyton Manning. And I think he has served Denver better than Luck was able to serve the Colts. And obviously he got them to 1 Super Bowl in which they got blown out.
I think the thing about it is that in all seriousness, let's be honest about why we're having this discussion. We're not having this discussion to debate the greatness of Peyton Manning compared to the greatness of Andrew Luck, because Andrew Luck does not compare to Peyton Manning as of yet. Peyton Manning, obviously omitting 2011 because he didn't play a game due to the neck surgeries and what have you, Peyton Manning is literally in his 17th season in the National Football League. Andrew Luck is in his 4th. That is a 13. If you want to add the year, it's a 14-year. But in terms of playing, it's a 13-year gap, a 13-year difference. And that's where you and I part ways. Because I know you're talking about it's a win-now league, it's a win-now league. The difference between you and I is that you're sitting there and you're betting the house on Peyton Manning in this 3-4 year period where he's doing his thing. If I'm an owner, if you're an owner, that's what you do. If I'm an owner, I'm thinking about the fact that I got this dude coming out of Stanford that may very well be around for 20 years. And I'm going to go with the 20 instead of the 4 to 5. That's all that's going on here, because Andrew Luck does not compare to Peyton Manning. Now, let's take into account what you're saying. Peyton Manning has played at an MVP caliber year. We understand that throughout his career. He's been in Denver now 3 full seasons. Skip, 2 of those years he didn't win a playoff game. He went to the Super Bowl the middle year. His first year there, they lost the very first game to the Baltimore Ravens.
On a Hail Flacco.
On a Hail Flacco. On a Hail Flacco. Last year, they lost to Andrew Luck. And some people believe because Peyton Manning got beat up against St. Louis and hadn't recovered. But again, because at the time he's 38 years of age, you got to go through what you got to go through. So to me, the very points, and this is where it's really interesting from a debatable perspective, because I'm not refuting what you're saying. I'm just saying that doesn't work for me in terms of my thinking. I'm looking at a Peyton Manning at age 38, all right, that obviously was beat up last year. And I'm looking at a guy like Andrew Luck that might have been able to take and withstand a little bit more. Andrew Luck's been beat up earlier this year, but he's still back. You know why? Because he's younger and he's bigger, and because he could probably take a bit more physical punishment at this point in time in his career. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing that should diminish the greatness of Peyton Manning. But if I'm Irsay, I'm looking at the future spanning an additional 13 to 15 years. I'm going with that. We are talking about an Andrew Luck that threw 40 touchdowns last year to just 16 interceptions. We are talking about an Andrew Luck who lost his first season in terms of a playoff game and a wild card, but won a divisional playoff game the next year. Went to the AFC Championship game a year after that. So he's actually won more playoff games than Peyton Manning has since he's come into this league.
By 3-2.
I understand that, 3-2.
Since he went to
Right.
Denver.
That's right. So I'm saying since he went to Denver.
Right.
So I'm saying to you that over that same time period, he has more playoff victories. Now, he got an easier road to the playoffs than Peyton Manning, and we all know that. But in the same token, he's been productive enough to justify the change in an era that needed to be made. And also keep in mind, it's not like Peyton Manning had the surgeries, came back, played like he played in Denver, and Irsay said goodbye.
Yep.
There were questions as to whether or not Peyton Manning would ever be Peyton Manning again because of health. So if I've got Andrew Luck waiting, and he's younger, and you've got all these prognosticators talking about his potential, which to some degree he has validated, despite the mistakes. There's no question to me that the Indianapolis Colts made the right move, because you have to take into account the time at which they made the move. Again, if Peyton Manning had come and thrown 55 touchdown passes and all that stuff, and then after that, Irsay said, no, I'm going to get away from you, and I'm going to go with the young dude, you got me. But they made that decision fresh off of Peyton Manning's surgery, him sitting out the season, having not played at all, and they had Andrew Luck waiting in the wings. You have to make that call. And I don't see how, honestly, Skip, from a business perspective, I'm not talking about your football-loving self. I'm talking about from a business perspective. I don't understand how you can look at Irsay under those conditions and deem him to have made the wrong decision. Because you're betting, remember, we're not talking about his game. You're talking about his health. You're betting on the health at the time of a 35, 36-year-old quarterback to one coming in at age 20, 21 with all of this potential. I don't know how that's an argument. I really don't.
Okay, I want to stress, I first guessed this. I'm not doing 20/20 hindsight.
Yeah, but,
I said it from the start. I'm not going to let go of it.
I will support you on that, but you have to be willing to emphasize the word guess. Even though you first guessed it, the operative word is not first. It's a guess. I can't guess at the expense of losing Andrew Luck. I can't do that.
Okay, remember, the ESPN reports versus the Indy team reports that were being reported, their doctors' reports, were that our reports were saying independent doctors were clearing Peyton and saying he was going to be okay. I don't bet against proven greatness. And as shaky as Peyton has often been in the postseason, I've often questioned his postseason. What is it? I've lost track. 9-11 in the postseason?
Yep.
Okay. I get that. But if I have a chance with a guy who's so beloved in my city that we might go a little farther with him, I'm not going to bet on Andrew Luck because I didn't love him enough, because I told you I would take RG3 over Luck, and then RG3 got hurt. But you can also, I'm going to give you some ammo here to argue back to me. It's also possible that at age, what was he then, 36 or whatever, he needed Peyton the challenge of going to Denver, being kicked out.
He was 36. He was
36. So he needed the challenge to say, I'll show you when I go to Denver, possibly.
I think that Peyton Manning is class personified. I think that we have to do him his appropriate justice by recognizing that although there may be nuggets of material that can serve as a motivational tool for any athlete, Peyton is the kind of person that he's such a perfectionist, he doesn't really need it to go out there and to strive to be all that he can be. That's just the way. That's one of the reasons that I love the Manning family so much. I think they're the first family of football because from top to bottom, from Archie on down to his children, they're just class personified.
Absolutely.
They do things the right way, and they got the right attitude, and I think that applies to Peyton. But again, and by the way, his playoff record is 11-13.
Okay,
it was 9-10 in Indy and 2-3 in Denver.
Okay.
But the point is, Skip, in the end, what it comes down to, again, you're not betting against. I understand your thought. Don't bet against greatness. My response to that is, when it comes to one's health, combined with Father Time. You just don't know.
Okay, fine.
And I can't. And remember, it's not like this is Ryan Leaf here. It's not like we're guessing. Like, oh my goodness, this is Ryan Leaf. No, this is Andrew Luck.
I'm
Universally recognized. I mean, it was a surefire, no doubt about it. He was Peyton Manning. He was like,
I won't go that far.
No, I'm talking about coming into the league, the way Peyton Manning was projected coming out of Tennessee. That's what Andrew
A whole lot of people loved Ryan Leaf that year. Trust me.
Yeah, but they didn't trust him up here. They loved his ability, just like they loved.
They did. Well, I was all over that draft.
No.
It was 50-50.
You are. But what I'm saying is, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because I recall you saying it. Mm-hmm. You were talking about everybody was nip and tuck, Ryan Leaf, Peyton Manning. But the one thing that everybody pointed out was this.
Sure. Okay.
And they didn't say that about Ryan Leaf.
Last point. Mm-hmm. As much as I love and admire the Manning family, I don't love and admire Jim Irsay. And I think in the end, this is my 2 cents from a distance. This is my armchair psychiatry. To me, Jim comes across as a frustrated wannabe rock star. He's bought up all these classic guitars used by Jimi Hendrix and some of the great guitarists.
Right.
And I think in the end, at that point, he wanted to take over the Colts. He wanted to because it was Peyton's team, and he wanted it to be his team and his future. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go pick the quarterback, and I'm going to show you, and then I'm going to take over the town. That's what I think he tried to do.
And my response to that, I think that, and I don't mean to be negative here, but I don't think we can ignore some of the personal issues Irsay had and how that may have basically provoked him even more to want it to be his, because the level of affection that he would receive would offset some of the problems he had.
And to piggyback on both of that, some concern with the Colts specifically. Did you guys see the Indianapolis Star report that they held a players-only meeting that happens all the time, but this one was that lineup changes are being dictated by the front office and not Pagano's staff?
Well, that's great. Again, that's a Gregson issue, and
it could be an owner issue.
It could be an owner.
It's an issue.
And it's good that you pointed that out, because yesterday I pointed out Gregson, or 2 days ago I pointed out Gregson. Maybe it's not Gregson. Maybe it's Irsay forcing Gregson to force whatever he forces upon the rest of the team.
We'll see.
Could be.
There's smoke, there's fire. Now, despite an 11-game regular season winning streak and being the only team in the NFC without a loss, Carolina's an underdog at home to Green Bay. If the line holds, it'll be the first time a 7-0 team or better was a home underdog since 2007. The Packers haven't lost back-to-back games with Aaron Rodgers as their starter since 2010, 5 years ago. Stephen A., who wins? Who are you going to roll with here?
I'm interested in this.
Yeah,
I can't
these
wait.
are both his guys. Cam or that bad man?
Skip Bayless, that bad man.
Oh.
Cannot get my vote this week.
Oh, he cannot get your vote.
I have to go.
He tricked us.
I have to go with Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers to win this game. Aaron Rodgers only throwing about 225 yards passing per game. The absence of weapons is bad enough because Jordy Nelson is out and Randall Cobb. I don't know what's going on with him and Jones, but you've got Norman there. Josh Norman, and with this guy playing the way that he's playing as one of the elite corners in this game, I have no doubt that he'll be on Aaron Rodgers' best weapon. I don't understand for the life of me why the Green Bay, and I'm not saying I know this definitively, but I'm assuming they did not go after Vernon Davis. I don't know why, because Richard Rodgers isn't doing it for me. He's not moving me at all. Basically, the strength of their offense has been their running game. When you combine that with the fact that Cam Newton finds a way to make plays, assuming Ted Ginn doesn't drop any passes, because we all know it's entirely possible that he might drop another couple of passes this weekend. I just look at Carolina right now. I think their defense is big time. I think they really get after it. I think anything that allowed the Colts to come back on Monday night is because they took their foot off the gas. I don't see them doing that against Aaron Rodgers. I think ultimately Aaron Rodgers will make some plays. He will make the game interesting. But I think the combination of Carolina's defense, of Josh Norman and his abilities at cornerback, combined with Cam Newton making a play when it needs to be made, I just see Carolina winning this game. I'm picking them to win this game 26-21 over the Green Bay Packers.
I'm shocked and impressed at your objectivity here. Yes. Is it possible we're finding out that Aaron Rodgers was actually a product of Jordy Nelson? Is that possible?
I don't think so.
Seriously?
I think any quarterback. I wouldn't say any quarterback, but I think any elite quarterback is a product of receivers getting open. If your receivers can't create space and get open, there's nothing a quarterback can do.
Well, Tom Brady is a whole nother story.
Well, those receivers are open.
Yeah, he's throwing a lot of.
I'm just saying, Gronkowski, Amendola, Edelman, and even LaFell. I mean, even Brandon LaFell, who's dropped more passes than I can count. He's been open to drop them. So something's up.
They get 2 inches open, and he fits it in.
Okay.
That's what happens.
All right. And Aaron Rodgers doesn't, huh? Okay.
Aaron Rodgers just threw for 77 yards in an entire football game.
It's bad.
70. Wait, is that right?
Yeah, it was 37 in the first two. Yeah.
Okay, 77 total yards. And by the way, this is a rare road game for Aaron Rodgers and company.
Oh, here we go.
Right.
Stop it.
This is like their third road game.
You know what, though, Molly? Skip is right. It does seem like practically every game is at Lambeau Field. It really does. It's not. Of course, they got 8 road games a year. But it does really seem like practically every game is at Lambeau Field. It really does sometimes.
So I hate to say it, but my vote for this game is going to Aaron Rodgers. I'm going to Aaron Rodgers.
I'm going with him.
I am.
Reversal of roles
I know.
today.
I'm reversing, and I'm not flipping on the fly here. I already decided. I told our man Chuck in the meeting, our biggest Green Bay fan, Chuck Solitore, on our meeting.
Yep.
He watches over this show.
Yes,
right?
he does.
Keeps you in your place in line, right?
He tries.
Yeah. I told Chuck, I just like the bad man in this game. I do, because I'm not completely sold on Cam and company. I'm sold on Cam. I'm not sold on and company. I just don't know. They scared me a little bit against a bad Indy team. It just like you said, they did take their foot off the gas. Then it got crazy. Then Cam made a great throw. Ted Ginn dropped, and they were a little lucky to win the game, but they won. That's 11 straight wins for this team, dating back to last year. That's extraordinary in the National Football League to win 11 straight games, again, dating to last year. What are they, 7 now and 4 last year? Mm-hmm. But I think that Aaron Rodgers, I think Mike McCarthy is going to take the ball out of Aaron's hands this week. I think they're going to run the football. I think Eddie Lacy can pound it, and I think Starks can pound it. And I think they will have some success keeping the score a little bit lower. I'm going to go 24-20 visiting team. Rare road game, but I think the Packers are just a little better overall football team. Because remember, it was just 2 games ago, a week ago, really, that they went into the Denver game with the number 1 ranked defense in the NFL. So I think it rises and shines. Cam doesn't have much to throw to or run with, not that much. And, he's sort of the driving force of the team, both running and throwing. So I think this time the Packers stand back up and say, hey, we're better than you think we are. And Carolina's not as good as we think.
It's really a pick-em, and I'm really anxious to see Clay Matthews because Clay Matthews obviously goes after it and goes after quarterbacks and is flexing and doing all of that other stuff. Well, Cam's that kind of dude too.
He is.
So it's going to be real interesting to see what kind of day Clay Matthews is going to have on this particular afternoon.
And I remind you, Green Bay is a 2.5-point favorite.
Yes, they are.
And I think it'll be that kind of game that they will win and stay afloat as one of the top teams.
But remember, the road team is usually given about 3 points in Vegas. So the fact that you're just 2.5, that's almost like a pick-em.
I made a sign for this special occasion, just so America can soak it in.
What does it say?
Skip has
Rodgers.
Stephen A. does not.
That's impressive.
Yeah, that was good. I worked on that.
To do that? Where did that come from?
Because
what's so impressive? I mean, nobody can read it, really.
Yeah.
Nobody can see it.
Yeah.
You know that, right?
What?
Nobody can see it. I don't know.
You can't see it?
I can't see it. I can barely see it. And I'm
all right. It says Skip has Rodgers, Stephen A. does not.
That's a bullet. That's like a news flash, right?
Yeah. And I need to let everybody just soak that in, marinate on that
There we go.
The Cowboys have lost 5 straight games since losing Tony Romo to injury in Week 2. Against the Eagles, Dallas hasn't lost 6 straight games in a single season since 1989. This will be DeMarco Murray's first game back in Dallas since signing with the Eagles this offseason. We welcome Mark Schlereth to the desk. Super Bowl champion Mark Schlereth. Nice ring there.
Well, you know it every now and again.
Yeah.
Every now and again.
Listen, why not? I would too.
This man knows offensive line, and he knows the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh,
Good
yes,
match
he does.
For this topic.
Yes.
We need a voice of reason here.
Okay.
We do.
How much of the Cowboys missed DeMarco this season?
Oh, they've missed him a ton. You go back to Joseph Randle, and listen, I thought this was going to work out for them. Obviously, it hasn't worked out for them. But, I said this back in April or whatever it was when DeMarco Murray left for more money to go to Philadelphia and said this is not a great fit in Philadelphia. He's just not. And people thought, are you crazy? 1,800 yards. He was the number one back in the National Football League last year. What do you mean it's not a good fit? Just because you bring a downhill runner into your system and then you put him in a side-to-side system, that doesn't make you a downhill team. It just flat out doesn't. So he was a bad fit going there. I thought they'd be able to overcome that. But when you watch Joseph Randle, and I know they released him, but when you watched him, this is a guy that doesn't understand the beauty of a nasty 2-3 yard run. And DeMarco Murray is a downhill guy when you have a downhill offensive line and a downhill system that when you block it for 3, he's going to get you 6. When you block it for 6, he's going to pop one out for 15. Yep. And when you block it for 15, man, he's gone to the house. So they really desperately miss him because he is that cog, all works together. That offensive line, that running game, the tight ends, the wide receivers, they all work in unison when you have the right system and the right players plugged into that system. You can take a great player, and it's case in point in Philadelphia, and plug him into the wrong system, and he becomes a guy. And that's really what has happened there. So, yeah, did the Dallas Cowboys miss him? You're darn right they miss him. They miss the heck out of him because they don't have a guy that can do what he does. And, and it's really hurt them here down the stretch without Romo, obviously.
I tried to tell Skip this. He wouldn't accept.
And you tried to reason with him?
I tried to reason with him. I tried to tell him, well, Darren McFadden, you don't know about his health.
Well, I've known about it so far, right?
I'm just saying, you don't know about his health, how long it's going to last. This is before the season obviously began. Tried to tell him about Lance Dunbar and how, the workload, if there was going to be one, you don't know what he could handle. And, of course, Joseph Randle, we don't know whether his availability is going to be. Depends on what department store you pass by.
Wait a second. He's gone. He's gone.
I know he's gone.
You can't do it anymore.
I know he's gone.
The statute of limitations has run out.
I just couldn't pass that up.
He's the dirt on his grave.
You can't do it.
It's over. Listen, man. Listen, I just have fun with it, okay? He's no thief. He just was in the best spot. Had some stuff to cover up, okay? I just can't get over that. It's just the funniest story of the year for me. Anyway, drawers and a daggone sample cologne. Don't get me started. But here's the point. The point is, those dudes are gone, and all you got to rely upon is McFadden, who hasn't been reliable. We know he can play, but reliability hasn't been his strength.
Right.
And then when you couple that with the fact that you can load the box because you can dare a Brandon Whedon or a Matt Castle to throw the football, that puts you in a very, very difficult situation. One, I believe, DeMarco Murray more than proved he could handle behind that offensive line last season. You just don't disrupt something that appears to be working, particularly when you are in pursuit of a Super Bowl championship that has eluded you for the last 20 years. And you yourself have acknowledged that you're running out of time. Tony Romo has acknowledged on the team jet with you that you're running out of time, okay? So all of those things going on, and you decide to make that decision. I just think it's one of those situations where you messed up your own flow. The Dallas Cowboys did this to themselves. They did this to themselves, and that's why they suffered.
The beauty of what they did last year was give us an 8-man box, give us a 9-man box. We don't care. We're not going to force you. You will never force us to check out of that based upon your defensive formations. We will dictate the running game to you, not the other way around. And that's not the way the NFL is structured anymore because everybody wants to throw the ball 70% of the time. So defenses can dictate when you're going to run it, when you're not going to run it. Not when Dallas last year. Dallas said, we'll run it when we want to, even if we have Dez one-on-one, because we're going to jam it down your gullets because we've got this offensive line, we've got this running back, we've got the best blocking tight ends in football. So we have these things established. What you have to understand, and I don't think any of us did, you should know in Dallas, does the guy that you have to replace the guy, does he understand those principles? The problem with some running backs, and Joseph Randle falls into this, is you don't understand the beauty of a nasty 2-yard game. You don't understand the beauty when you're dancing around trying to break one for 80 every time. That takes you out of the flow of your offense. It puts you behind the chains, and that's exactly what happened to them here. So these are two guys. And you know what? It goes both ways. It's DeMarco Murray not understanding what the Philadelphia offense is either.
Do I get to talk?
No.
Segment? Because I've heard a whole lot of you and a whole too much lot of you.
Okay, go ahead, Skip.
I haven't said one word.
We haven't said a lot from your Cowboys. What could you say to us that we haven't heard? Go ahead. The floor is yours. About the Cowboys? Let's go.
You are both dead wrong. If Tony Romo were still healthy and Lance Dunbar were still healthy, my Cowboys would be running away with the NFC East as we speak. So don't give me DeMarco this and DeMarco that. They would be missing him a whole lot more if he were running downhill through the National Football League for 150 yards a game, and he is not. And I remind you, the first time he faced Dallas's doomsday defense, he got a total of 2 yards on 13 tries.
We're talking about him for the Cowboys.
I get it. I have to put that in some perspective for you. Now let's look at the numbers, which you guys failed to look at. Right now, the Eagles are averaging 4.9 yards per rush. I don't know how, but without DeMarco, my Cowboys are averaging 4.5 yards a rush. That's pretty good. I think it's pretty great. You know why? Because they have by far the best offensive line in all of pro football. And it only gets a little better by each game because Lyle Collins, the rookie, is now at left guard and grades out right now as the best blocking left guard in football over the last 4 games. Thank you very much. Now, do you realize how much they miss Lance Dunbar, who tore up his knee at New Orleans? He was the Sproles of my offense. So surely, if he were
my offense, you got a mouse in your pocket?
Yeah. Hey, listen.
Are you calling plays?
Yeah, well, hey.
When it comes to Cowboys, he might.
I have no idea what that means. Lance Dunbar was a Sproles type. It had a Sproles type impact here. He had a 45-yard run against Atlanta. He had a 37-yard catch at Philadelphia. That's a little catch. It's mostly catch and run. 24 at the Giants. So, again, if you take him away, he's a difference maker in the run game.
Okay, so
all of a sudden, and Randall it craps out. He just bottoms out. He goes completely south, and he becomes more trouble than he's worth. And you told me 3 weeks ago, they're not going to miss a beat without Joseph Randall. Am I right? You thought Joseph Randall?
I thought going into this season they would miss out because of the offensive line and the structure of the way they run it.
I agree.
I thought they'd be okay without DeMarco Murray. They haven't found that replacement.
Wait a second. Back to the stats. Yeah. So my Cowboys have 895 yards rushing, and the Eagles have only 913.
Oh, you can't
That's not
do
that much. Yes, I can. I just did it.
No, you can't. I'm coming to your number.
Oh.
Here's why you can't do that. Because of everything you and everybody else conceded coming into the system about DeMarco Murray being in Philadelphia. They talked about the system. They talked about how different it was than the Cowboys. And they challenged the notion that he would be as effective in Philly as he was in Dallas. So the debate here about DeMarco Murray, Skip, is not about DeMarco Murray as a running back. It's about DeMarco Murray within the Cowboys lineup behind that offensive line. I'm going to ask you this question. And I know that injuries happen. And I know that there's a lot that's going on, and Tony Romo has had his share of injuries throughout the years, okay? Skip Bayless, last year, Tony Romo seemed pretty fine for everybody. You trying to tell me that had nothing to do with the 392 carries, the 449 touches overall that were given to DeMarco Murray? DeMarco Murray saved Tony Romo. He saved him.
No. Tony Romo had by far the best QBR in all of pro football. I'm sorry. Yes, it is. That's relevant.
I'm talking about health. I'm saying that DeMarco Murray behind that offensive line, because you were able to give him the ball, that's one of the reasons why Jerry Jones did it.
Romo made DeMarco, not the other way around.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
my God.
Yes.
That's where I'm going.
You can get the line.
Let me use last night's game to your argument. Okay?
Mike Pettin be irrelevant to this argument. Go ahead.
Okay, Mike Pettin last night, at halftime, said if we don't jump off sides, this game is tied 10-10. Wrong. If you don't jump off sides, that was 4th down, it's 10-7. And the bottom line is, you did jump off sides. You're talking about Tony Romo. Well, if Tony Romo wasn't hurt and Lance Dunbar wasn't hurting this,
okay,
if my aunt,
Mark,
blah, 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 she'd be my uncle.
No, you're smart enough to know. If Tony Romo is there, then you can't stack the box You know, like what they're doing right now. They're just daring the quarterback to throw the foot. They're saying we're going to take your run away.
Are you trying to say the Cowboys weren't the opponents weren't stacking the box against the Cowboys last year?
They stacked it last year.
They did stack them last year. Yes, they did.
Stack the box with
yes, they did.
Tony Romo.
Because of that offensive line. Hold on, Mark. Because of that offensive line that you brag about all the time, it was so potent, it was so powerful. They had to stack the line of scrimmage to try to neutralize
I can show you so many 8- and 9-man boxes last year. I could show you 100.
No.
8-man boxes. Of course I could.
Now I can show you 100 12-man boxes. Like they're putting extra people in the box because Brandon Weeden and Matt Castle can't throw it, and they know it. So they just say, we're going to take it away. And I just read you the numbers. Even though they're taking away the run, still averaging 4.5 yards a carry. That's pretty great.
Which is why they stacked the line of scrimmage last year against the Cowboys. Because if you're going to stack them with McFadden running the football or Randall before he got cut running the football, what were you going to do with DeMarco Murray last year? You sat up there and picked the lesser of two evils, so you tried to key on DeMarco Murray, and you dared Tony Romo to beat you, and by and large, he did that. But don't say they didn't stack the line of scrimmage. They were stacked against DeMarco Murray. Tony Romo was saved last year because of DeMarco Murray. It is not the other way around. It is not the other way around. Oh, my goodness.
Wait, they worked together. They worked together in unison. Tony Romo is a great
quarterback's game.
Tony Romo is a great player, regardless.
Yep.
He's a great player. He's a great quarterback. But you can't tell me that you know what, that balance doesn't help a quarterback. You can't tell me that running the ball doesn't take pressure off a guy. Of course it does. To a certain extent. And they work in unison together.
Hey, the best fourth quarter QBR last year in pro football belonged to Tony Romo. When plays had to be made, it wasn't DeMarco making them. It was the quarterback making them. And the wideout making them.
Because why? Because people are hell-bent for election to stop. There's no more humiliating thing in the world than get shoved around and getting it run down your gullet as a football player. You know what? You give up a big pass over the top. You know what? Oh, we busted a coverage. Oh, they got us on that one, whatever. When you get consistently 6, 7, 8, 4, 3, 9, 12, 14 touchdown. That's humiliating to a defense.
This game revolves around touchdown passes. Big touchdown passes.
No, stop.
Last year, I understand your argument overall, but last year, how could you even deny that? It's embarrassing that you would deny how much
embarrassing?
Yes, how much
I'm embarrassed to have this discussion.
You should be embarrassed.
Tony Romo, what did I say all year? Wait a second. Wait a second. What did I tell you all year? Wait a second.
Tony Romo.
I'm not being a hypocrite here. I told you the last 4 weeks of the year. Who did I say was the MVP of the league?
Tony
Romo.
I know that. Hold on, time out.
Thank you. So I'm not doing 20/20 hindsight.
Since you want to do that, who said DeMarco Murray was the MVP?
You did.
That would
you
be
were wrong,
me. So
but it's okay.
No. You were too. So here's the deal.
I wasn't wrong. It's a quarterback's game.
You can say
want a running
back?
Wait a second. What is this league devalued in the draft over the last 5 years?
That's not the point.
Yes, it is.
Change the argument. We're talking about the Cowboys from last year. It is no doubt that DeMarco Murray and his excellence behind that offensive line saved Tony Romo. And the second he was gone, he couldn't even last 2 weeks before he got knocked out for half the season. That's the bottom line. Because you don't
got knocked out by a cheap shot by a rookie from the Philadelphia Eagles.
Whatever.
Are you kidding me?
The bottom line is this. Complete teams win championships. Complete teams have success. And if you go control the line of scrimmage in this league, I don't care how good your quarterback is, Andrew Luck, case in point, when you spend all your money on periphery players and wide receivers and you don't invest in an offensive line and you don't invest in controlling the line of scrimmage, you don't win. I don't care how good you are.
He did. You cannot win without a quarterback. It's as simple as that.
That's true.
That's true. He handcuffed you with that, as you brought up with that November 22nd deadline, injured reserve with designation to return.
And now, for Geico's edition of Stuff Found in Your Car, we go inside your side door pocket.
Hello, yes, the crumpled receipt with gum in it. From your anniversary dinner, you sprang for expensive wine, your server was Beth. That dinner was a couple $100. Money you could get back if you switched to Geico and saved hundreds of dollars on your car insurance. I bet you'd save that receipt. Frame it even. But really, where did I go wrong? Was it the corkage fee?
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com today.
He reminds me, a lot of myself. He's a strong guy. He runs fast, physical, great feet. He has great vision, nice balance, and just the determination that he runs with. you don't see a lot of running backs that run that way.
This is definitely one of the legends, one of the best. So this will be my first time, just playing against the Vikings. So I'll definitely be on the sideline looking and watching. I'm playing against a good physical Vikings defense, and he's going to be playing against a good Rams defense. So, there'll definitely be a tough challenge for both of us.
It's going to be a battle of two of the best running backs in the league, rookie Todd Gurley and the Rams versus Adrian Peterson and the Vikings. Now, according to Elias, Gurley and Peterson are the only players in NFL history with 4 100-yard rushing games in their first 5 career games. Skip, could Gurley be better than Adrian Peterson?
Stephen A., you'll accuse me of overreacting, being very premature here, but I'm going to take the plunge. I think he can be. Will he be? I don't know if he'll stay healthy. That's going to be the issue because he's coming off an ACL last year at Georgia. I love this kid when he was at Georgia. I told you I thought the Rams flat out stole him in the draft. I know we have devalued the position of running back in drafts, but not this kid. He is so big, so agile, so fast. He accelerates so quickly that I believe he's a touch faster with the football under his arm than Adrian has ever been.
A touch.
Just a touch. This is splitting hairs here. Mm-hmm. I think he's a touch more elusive, just shiftier than Adrian. I don't know if his heart is as big as Adrian's because we all know that Adrian Peterson will just flat out run over who's ever in his way. He's just going to attack them, and as a Lion, he's going to maul them, whether it's a linebacker or a strong safety or whoever, a defensive tackle. He's going to try to run through them, and I don't know that about Todd Gurley, but maybe that would be a good thing for Todd Gurley. But when I look at these numbers, and I've watched a good bit of these games, he has such easy, free flow to him when he gets the ball in his hands. He has such vision, knack, feel. It's just effortless. Whoosh, and he's gone. And I'm looking at 146 in the first full game, and then 159 and 128 and 133. And I'm going to throw this out there because I threw it out last year. A lot of our younger viewers only know O.J. Simpson because of a terrible thing that happened, right? And so we
a very terrible thing that
very,
happened.
very terrible thing that happened. And they know him as a guy who's in prison. Mm-hmm. But listen, once upon a time, when O.J. Simpson was at the University of Southern California, and he was a Buffalo Bill, listen, it was a beautiful thing to watch. I'm talking about as a football player, as a running back. There's never been a prettier sight. And this kid's starting to remind me of the, they called him the juice, the flow and go that OJ had. Mm-hmm. It's a different style than Adrian's. And I think if he can endure, and that's always the big question, Adrian's had his share of injuries too, but I think he can be a little more effective than Adrian can be.
Here's what I would tell you. First of all, I had one lone reservation about Gurley. I watched him at Georgia last year. I thought he was sensational. I had questions about his durability because I thought he ran too high. If you remember, I sat right on this set, and I said, he does not need to come back to Georgia when some bogus nonsense had him missing a few games for them and stuff with their sanctimonious, self-righteous selves, and he ended up missing a few games.
Another autograph scandal.
Another autograph scandal, right. And I said he shouldn't come back. Yep. They ain't winning the national title. He owes the university nothing. Don't go out there and jeopardize your draft status by coming back. He came back anyway and got hurt the next damn week. Okay? And so, but luckily for St. Louis, he was there to be picked up by them. I thought he runs too high. And because of that in the NFL, because of the nasty knee injuries I've seen, I was worried about him. That's it. His skill level is big time. He is no joke. He is averaging 115 yards a game. Do you know that Adrian Peterson only did that once in his career? And that was in 2012 when he rushed for 2,097 yards. Adrian Peterson averaged 131 yards rushing that season. That's the only time in his career he's averaged above 110. Okay? This dude right now, Gurley, is at 115. All right? This dude, Gurley, is averaging 6.1 yards a carry. Adrian Peterson only did that once in his career. At 6 yards a carry. This same year, he had the 2,097 yards. What you're seeing from Gurley right now is some special stuff. And I can't deny that. It's going to be real interesting to see if it continues because, again, piggybacking off what we were alluding to about the Cowboys last year. Well, Tony Romo was great. This is Nick Foles we talking about.
You're right.
So you got Nick Foles in St. Louis, and they're going to look at Gurley and be like, wait a minute. I mean, I know Tavon Austin's a bad boy, but Nick Foles got to throw him the ball, and you Kenny Britt, you got to throw him the ball. I mean, we might want to take that risk and stack the line of scrimmage against this brother right here because he's so special. So it's going to be real interesting what he does moving forward because we've seen how great Gurley has the potential to be. Now, when you talk about St. Louis, you got to talk about somebody that's worth fearing here because this is the 30th ranked. I mean, they're the 30th ranked passing attack because of Nick Foles, but they got one of the top 5 rushing attacks because of Gurley.
Yeah.
Now, in Minnesota's case, Minnesota is going to have to deal with that. Adrian Peterson obviously is going up against St. Louis, and they're in that front center with Donald and Brockers and Quinn and those boys. They will be ready. They're 4-3. St. Louis is coming. So it's going to be real interesting to see what happens this week. But speaking overall, does Gurley have the potential to be better than Adrian Peterson? I'm not going to go that far because of durability. But as it pertains to ability, I definitely believe this is a valid conversation because I think Gurley's abilities are that great. His potential is that great. But when you're going to compare somebody to Adrian Peterson, we have to show deference and respect to Adrian Peterson in this respect.
I agree with that.
I don't care if Todd Gurley rushes for 2,000 yards this season. What you going to do next season? The season after that. And the season after that.
I agree.
Because that is what Adrian Peterson has done.
Okay.
And by the way, he's doing it now.
He's doing it
He's doing it now.
He's doing it now. What I do love about this kid's situation as opposed to a Johnny Manziel's is Jeff Fisher really, really wanted Todd Gurley. So he's going to do everything in his power. And remember, Jeff Fisher wants to run it and he wants to play defense. So I hope he doesn't run him in the ground.
Yeah.
But again, I think he'll do everything in his power to prop him up and protect him as well as he can. And I told you before the year started, I'm picking the Rams to win a wild card because of Todd Gurley.
You did say that.
It took him a few games to make sure the knee was right. And then
Before he came.
Yes.
The second he's come in, he's been doing it ever since he's arrived. And I will tell you this, too. Let's pay attention to this game. Minnesota Vikings are 5-2.
They're good.
And even though Teddy Bridgewater is not knocking your socks off, he's still doing some things. He's got 5 interceptions in 7 games. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater is doing all right. Adrian Peterson's averaging 4.5 yards a carry, and this defense for Minnesota is really, really good. Zimmer's doing a good job. So it's going to be real interesting. I mean, this is an interesting game, not just for Gurley, but for St. Louis, because let's see what they're made of in this particular situation.
Hey, if Gurley gets 150 this time, I'm going to be like, wow.
Wow.
Yep. Gurley said he'll be watching AP on the sidelines. He's excited as well. He called him the Godfather. I like that.
You know what?
His respect.
Adrian Peterson deserves it on that level. Any running back should be looking up to Adrian Peterson.
Exactly. Meanwhile, the Raiders play at the Steelers at 1 Eastern on Sunday. Now listen up. Early games are tough for Oakland, who's lost 6 of their last 18 games played on Sundays at 1 Eastern. They play a Steelers team who will be without Le'Veon Bell. In 2 games without Bell this season, D'Angelo Williams ran for 204 yards. Who wins?
I'm rolling with the Steelers. Okay, I'm rolling with the Steelers. I mean, listen. I will openly confess that the Oakland Raiders have surprised me. I mean, I know Derek Carr can play. I believe Amari Cooper's a stud. Khalil Mack speaks for itself. Justin Tuck's leadership. I didn't expect Charles Woodson to have the kind of year that he's having. He's been absolutely sensational. Proud of you, bro. Keep it up. But let me say this. As depressed as I am at another injury to Le'Veon Bell, incurred and initiated by the Cincinnati Bengals, okay? D'Angelo Williams is not too shabby.
Oh, he's good.
This is a starting running back in almost any other system. With the Steelers, he's a backup. He's averaging the same amount of yards per carry as Le'Veon Bell was at 4.9. I'm thinking about Ben Roethlisberger. Got a week, an extra week after working off the rust last week in the loss to the Cincinnati Bengals. Okay? So I expect things to be a little bit different this year. Is Oakland a good team? Yes. I don't think they're better than the Cincinnati Bengals. So we take that into account. Then you still got Antonio Brown. You still got Marcus Sweetie. You still have Martavis Bryant. You still have Heath Miller. You still have all of these requisite weapons. And dare I say, the Steelers defense. deserves a little bit of love compared to what they've usually been. It's a 6th-ranked defense in the NFL.
Okay.
The 6th-ranked defense in the NFL. 8 against the run, of course, even though they're 26th against the pass. I'm not happy about that. That worries me, especially when you take into account Amari Cooper. But nevertheless, and I look at Murray for Oakland, very impressive. I got all of that. But they're in Pittsburgh. They had to go from the West Coast to the East Coast. It's a 1 o'clock game, which is 10 in the morning for them. There's a whole bunch of little issues, little nuggets of issues working against them. And on top of it all, I don't think Ben Roethlisberger is going to look that bad 2 weeks in a row. Am I concerned about him? Sure I am. Because obviously when you get hit the way that he got hit against St. Louis, that's problematic because even though you might be healthy with that brace on, you're still dancing in the pocket. I even expect the Steelers to make an improvement special teams wise, Dree Archer got cut. Wasn't producer for you. You got it, Jacoby Jones.
Oh, that was hysterical.
The same dude that Tomlin got in trouble for standing near the sideline a few years back. So they didn't trip him. He did not trip him. He did no such thing. Watch your mouth.
Please.
Watch your mouth. Mike Tomlin would never do such a thing.
Yes,
the point that I'm trying to make
do anything to win.
Well, not anything. He ain't Bill Belichick, but let's not go there.
They did fine him. They did fine him.
They fined him. So what?
Yeah.
We get over it. Nobody's perfect in life. The point is, that's right. Nobody's perfect in life. The point is, the Steelers have a lot going for them in this game. Had it been in Oakland, I would have been considerably more worried. I know that Oakland is much improved. I respect them. And not only that, they're on a come up to the point where you're the Steelers. You're clearly not going to win the AFC North. These games are pivotal because I believe the wild card spots in the AFC are being fought between Oakland, Pittsburgh, and the New York Jets, with Miami and Buffalo still in the mix. Steelers have to win this game. This is a very important game. I think they close the deal. They get it done. Steelers, 31. Oakland, 24.
And you grew up a fan of the
Steelers.
Pittsburgh Steelers. Yes. Thank you very much.
Yes. So I bring that up until when you talk about the Cowboys. I bring that up all the time.
You're welcome to. I love the Dallas Cowboys, and I have since I was like 8 years old,
right,
whenever they started, 1960.
You actually root for things to happen just to facilitate your team.
That's true. I do. I admit it. Now, speaking of picking with heart overhead, I am also going to pick with my heart on this game because I have slowly fallen in love with the Oakland Raiders. I love their rebirth because I covered the last Raiders team when I was out in the Bay Area. They got to the Super Bowl and then got humiliated, obviously, by John Gruden's team.
Bad.
But at least
when the dude went to Mexico, right?
The dude went the night before the dude went to Mexico.
The night before the Super Bowl.
Unfortunately, I was in San Diego and he went down the. Yeah, okay. So we weren't good.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So I'm picking with my heart here, but I do think the Raiders at 4-3 have a real shot at beating your Steelers.
I agree.
With Ben still a little tentative on his knee. He's still not sure of himself. And listen, this Khalil Mack can bring the thunder off the edge. He will cause some problems.
He's special.
For Mr. Roethlisberger. Okay, so remember when I picked the Raiders to beat Denver in the black hole? And I was way out on the limb with that one. Remember what happened? The Raiders are driving for the winning football. 6:53 left in the game. It's 3rd and 5 at the Denver 31. They're almost in range. They're almost in range for Sebastian Janikowski to win the game. And young Derek Carr throws a pick six to Chris Harris. He takes it 74 yards the other way. And that's how they lost that game. A narrow loss to a really good Denver team. And the other tough loss was against my guy Jay Cutler in Chicago, in which Derek Carr made the play to win the game with 2 minutes left. And then Jay Cutler goes boom, boom, boom down the field, and a last-second buzzer-beating field goal wins the game. So those are the two tough losses they've had. And this time, I'm going to say that this is one team that has a meant-to-be feel to it, and your team this year does not have a meant-to-be. It's like meant not to be.
That's fair. That's fair. If you're using that, I can't argue with that because that definitely has a feel where the Oakland Raiders have paid their, their dues, and as a result, their time has arrived. I just think with the multitude of weapons that the Steelers have, particularly if Ben Roethlisberger, obviously he can't be what he was last week. He can't be that ailing quarterback that comes to the rescue because Landry Jones was a one-hit wonder after Michael Vick went down a couple of weeks ago against Arizona. It can happen. Okay, so Ben Roethlisberger has to be healthy, and I know that there are some things that have to work in the Steelers' way. But at the same time, I just think that the game being in Pittsburgh goes a long way. A lot of damage we've seen from the Oakland Raiders, even though, in fairness to them, they lost to 2 undefeated teams, and they lost on a late rally to Jay Cutler and the Chicago Bears. Okay. But there's no denying that the Raiders look impressive. Amari Cooper is special. He's already got nearly 600 receiving yards, and it's just 7 games into the season. I want to take a moment to give some love to Jack Del Rio, the former defensive coordinator in Denver, who's now the head coach for the Oakland Raiders. I think he's doing a good job. And I got to tell you something as well. I'm going to give your, the offensive line coach, Mike Tice, so a little bit of love here. They're protecting. Derek Carr's only been sacked 8 times. You got a running game. This is a guy that's going largely unnoticed. Obviously, the line of scrimmage is where all the damage gets done. So I see what Oakland's doing, and they deserve a lot of credit. But I think the multitude of weapons the Steelers have at their disposal, combined with being in Pittsburgh, goes a long way. Am I worried? Sure I am. Derek Carr's only thrown 3 interceptions on the season. Got 15 touchdowns. He's completed 65% of his passes. This brother can play.
He's also thrown touchdown passes to 8 different receivers.
That's right.
And one of those is the Todd Gurley of rookie receivers, Amari Cooper, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I got that going for me.
Yeah, you do.
Here's why I'm scared.
And the Steelers don't have the greatest secondary either.
Okay.
Speaking of secondaries.
Yes.
Even though my Raiders have held opponents under 100 yards rushing for 5 straight games, the reason they've done that is because their pass defense ranks 31st.
That's right.
So Ben should have a pretty good day. But I'm still going to go Raiders 27-23.
Steelers will have to pass, and that's the interesting part. If Le'Veon Bell were healthy, they might be running the football more against the number 2 rushing attack defensively in the NFL in Oakland. Whereas with Le'Veon out, you're not going to rely on D'Angelo as much. And as a result, you're going to throw the football more.
Another great one.
Yeah.
So we've got a good slate this weekend. Pittsburgh's favored by 4.5. Tomorrow, College Game Day, built by the Home Depot, heads back to Tuscaloosa for the huge matchup between 7-0 LSU and the 7-1 Crimson Tide. It all starts Saturday at 9 Eastern on ESPN, and watch ESPN. And speaking of the big game, Stephen A. Smith, will this game seal Fournette's Heisman fate?
It will not. I think that he will have a good game because he's an absolute stud, averaging more than 7 yards a carry, already rushed for about 1,352 yards, but he is going up against Alabama. Roll Tide! And I expect that they will show up. Ragland will show up. Jackson will show up. The list goes on and on. That front 7 will stand up. They will answer the bell, and it will come down to LSU having to throw the football to win, and it will not happen, Skip. Eddie Jackson, Fitzgerald, and the crew will see to it that their passing game is not formidable. Alabama will win this game. It'll be a nail-biter, Les Miles. You know I love you. It'll be a nail-biter. But you ain't beating Nick Saban and Alabama this week in Tuscaloosa. It ain't happening. Roll Tide.
Okay, I am with you on this. I still think Fournette can win the Heisman. He's just not going to close the deal.
That's what I'm saying. He's not going to close the deal.
In this place against that defense.
That's right. Not seal it.
And I'll go this far. I will be extremely impressed if he can top 100 yards. I don't think he can get 100 against this front 7 in this stadium on this day in this game.
I think he's going to have a couple of big runs, a couple of 20-plus yard runs. But outside of that, it's going to be methodical. He'll have about 105 yards.
We'll be in Westover Monday for Veterans Day. Stephen A. 6 o'clock Sports Center. Can't wait.
Oh, Lord.
Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. Catch First Take weekdays at 10 a.m. Eastern and catch the re-air at 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2.
A football Sunday doubleheader on ESPN Radio. First in Minnesota, the Vikings face the Rams. Touchdown! Then Andrew Luck and the Colts face the undefeated Broncos. Coverage begins at noon Eastern Sunday on ESPN Radio.